Today from the global lane, a Christian couple deported. Is a new wave of persecution underway at the top of the world? Also from Nepal, children rescued from human trafficking. A daring Christian foils the sinister plans for these kids and frees them from bondage. On the home front, bias against Trump at the FBI. The fireworks you may have missed from Peter Strzok's congressional testimony. Reporter George Thomas shares incredible stories of Christians rising up. And I'll drive it home on the left's reaction to Trump's meeting with Putin. And it's all right here, right now, from the global lane. A Filipino Christian couple has just been kicked out of Nepal. They were accused of evangelizing Hindus, and their deportation is the latest example of how a new anti-conversion law is being used against Christians in what is supposed to be a secular country. Well, joining us from Kathmandu with more is BP Kanal. He's a Nepali human rights and religious freedom advocate. BP, what can you tell us about this Filipino couple? I know you can't say a lot, but what happened?
Problem with the government and the people in that agency, particularly Immigration Bureau. They just depend on the report of media, particularly when they were reported that they were having business visa and were misusing that to proselytization and preaching the gospel and being involved in church. But in our perspective, when we saw this, though it was late, we heard after the incident already occurred. So we tried to dig out the problem, what was the fact, and then what we found out is that they were more biased because in the ground of human right and particularly freedom of religion or belief, we should know that they must have the right to practice their own faith.
Nepal is supposed to be a secular country now. I know years ago it was a Hindu kingdom, and Christians are very concerned about this new anti-conversion law that went into effect. Tell us about that law. Why such a law in a secular society?
Indeed, we are still in transition phase, politically speaking. So when we were trying to promulgate the Constitution, there were so many voices per the political ground, even unnecessary voices, that the country should go back and remain as Hindu nation. So now also they have even more focused to prohibit any conversion, and that would be penalized as criminal offense. So this is the development. In our perspective, on the ground of freedom of religion or belief, what we believe is this is not a secular state. Still, this is Hindu state.
And despite that law and those efforts against people becoming Christian, you have about 500,000 Christians now in Nepal. Many more are coming to Christ every day. So what is happening and why?
Particularly when we talk about conversion ratio, it is not only the Christians are increasing. There are Muslims, even there are other ethnical animism, what you call this, the traditional kind of religious sects are here. They are also increasing. So it is not just the church increasing. There are Muslims, particularly the Nepalis who are working in Gulf countries. There are many converts to Muslim also. But somehow I think the government and the officers are more targeting Christians now. In that ground, they are trying to harass any Christians to penalize that they are involved in conversion business.
Many of our viewers are Christian, so what should they do about this, and how can they pray for Nepal and the new believers there?
for us the work of God. The mission, when we say it, is not our effort. This is God working through many ways, many miracles and healings, and so many wonderful things are being happened here since several years, several decades indeed. So church is still active in evangelism, and that's the responsibility church thinks. So everybody is involved here. In that sense, we just ask for prayer that the Lord would work through the local churches, believers, every people, that they might be able to witness. That's the mandate for every Christians. We believe that we are not to be called a Christian, but we are the witness of Christ.
On July 30th, the world will recognize a day against human trafficking. That's because globally, more than 21 million people are subjected to forced labor. Many of them are trafficked for sexual exploitation. And over the years, CBN News has brought you stories of some of the victims. We've reported how Christian groups are trying to make a difference. Tell Asia is one such group, helping to rescue human trafficking victims in Nepal. And joining us from Kathmandu is Brother Amar. He's just returned from the field following a recent rescue effort. Amar, tell us about your recent rescue. So what did you do to help save children?
It's the off-road, and it's really difficult for us because we don't have the police, even we don't have a security. And when we are going to in there, and we almost reach in there, this is like a mountain. And when we are going to there, and lots of people came to there, and I'm also scared in myself. And when I am going to inside, and the children, they are living in one bed. The children are sleeping. 10 children are sleeping in one bed. And when I'm going to inside, and I'm asking the children, I'm trying to call them, please come here. Like, I'm trying to talking with my Nepal language, and I'm just saying, I'm here to rescue you. Please go with me. But children they are not agreed to come with me. Even they are crying. Still 6 hours, I'm inside. And after that, they will decided to come with me. We can put the restaurant, and they are talking and they are dancing. They knows, actually, I am a Nepali guy. And when we are rescue the children, and we arrest the three owners, now they are in jail. And when we back to Nepal, and we can go to hometown, and everybody, parents came, they are welcoming us. And here is the big news also, like, there is 2 children they believes in Jesus Christ.
Amar, what were they doing with the children there that you rescued?
The owner guys, they already sent the lots of kids in the, different country to the girls and boys. But when we rescue the kids, and we'll hand over their parents, and now the kids are going to the school, and Telesia are providing the boarding schools. Telesia are envision the boarding schools, and they have a good education, and now they are in okay.
So how extensive is sex trafficking in Nepal, using children and women for sex?
It's it's lots of, because lots of girls, they are going to in India, because it's easy to go to India, because we don't need to passport, we don't need to any ID, we can go easily.
Finally, what can our viewers do to make a difference? How can they help?
Please pray for our nation and this remote area, because there is the lack of education, lack of transportation, lack of road, and we need to, just pray for me, we need to a good school in this remote area.
So if they get into school, there's less likelihood that they will be trafficked.
Yeah, because they needs the education. Because there is no school.
Yeah. So Christians in our country can support schools and education in Nepal, and that will go a long way. So, Brother Amar from Kathmandu, Nepal, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In a 10-hour marathon hearing, members of Congress peppered and battled FBI agent Peter Strzok with questions of potential bias. Strzok was the lead investigator in the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the alleged collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Strzok's been in the spotlight for his derogatory texts about Donald Trump during the 2016 presidential campaign. Republicans are convinced that his behavior taints those investigations. Jennifer Wishon brings us a look at his testimony from Washington.
Peter Strzok began his testimony on offense.
I strongly believe today's hearing is just another victory notch in Putin's belt.
The senior FBI agent played major roles in investigations of both Hillary Clinton's private email server and suspected collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. At the center of suspicion surrounding him, a series of text messages between him and his then lover, FBI attorney Lisa Page.
On August 26, 2016, you texted Ms. Page, quote, "Just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support." And smell is in capital letters, all capital letters. What does Trump support smell like, Mr. Strzok?
Sir, that's an expression of speech. I clearly wasn't smelling one thing or the other.
Strzok told the joint hearing of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees that he separated his political opinions from his investigations. At one point, he refused to answer questions, citing a directive by FBI attorneys, leading the chairman to threaten him with contempt of Congress
And potential criminal liability. Do you understand that?
During the 10-hour hearing, Democrats staunchly supported Strzok.
If I could give you a Purple Heart, I would.
Republicans peppered him with questions, showing outrage that's been building for months.
I don't appreciate having an FBI agent with an unprecedented level of animus working on two major investigations during 2016.
Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert even questioned Strzok's character.
And I've talked to FBI agents around the country. You've embarrassed them, you've embarrassed yourself, and I can't help but wonder when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
If you need your medication.
Today, Lisa Page will be questioned by members of Congress in a closed-door session, having had the benefit of watching Strzok's testimony Thursday. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
And now a portion of the Strzok hearing that you may have missed. Some big fireworks from Texas Representative Louis Gohmert when he questioned Strzok about text messages he sent to former girlfriend, former FBI attorney Lisa Page. We pick up the testimony as Gohmert mentions receiving information about those text messages from Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz.
He had 500 pages of bias that he gave us. And then he threw a bone to the Democrats and said, but we can't find bias. And let me tell you, when you have text messages, Mr. Strzok, the way you do, saying the things you did, you'd been better off coming in here and say, look, that was my bias. And you kind of get around to that a little bit when you say, hey, you know, everybody's got political views. Those are called biases, and we all have them. And you have come in here and said, I had no bias. And you do it with a straight face. And I watched you in the private testimony you gave. And I told some of the other guys, he is really good. He's lying. He knows, we know he's lying. And he could probably pass a polygraph. It's amazing.
Mr. Chairman.
No, this is my
Mr.
time.
Chairman, I'm sorry.
It needs to be paused.
This point of order.
No.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
A member of this committee just asserted that this witness, who is under oath and a former agent of the FBI, lied. There is no evidence that. I ask him to withdraw it.
I do not withdraw it. He is not a member of Congress. It's not a violation of the rule. And just as you have been expressing bias through your members about what a hero
there is not a single person on this committee who has ever characterized a witness
Gentleman
as
from
lying.
Rhode Island.
Gentleman,
it's my time.
That's a disgrace.
Gentleman from Rhode Island will suspend.
No, the disgrace
Mr.
is what this man has done.
The gentleman
to
from
our
Texas
justice
will
system.
suspend for a moment.
There is the disgrace. and it won't be recaptured anytime soon because of the damage you've done to the justice system. And I've talked to FBI agents around the country. You've embarrassed them, you've embarrassed yourself, and I can't help but wonder when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
The credibility of a witness
Shame
is
on
always
you,
an
Mr.
issue.
Mr. Chairman, please, there's
Have you Mr. Chairman, this is intolerable harassment of the witness.
What's wrong with that? You need your medication.
The gentleman controls the time.
I ask that the witness be permitted to respond to
He
that
will be
despicable assertion.
He will be permitted
Did
to
you
respond.
ever
The
talk
gentleman
to
controls
Hillary
the time.
Clinton during your investigation, besides the one questioning you mentioned, before that or after that to this?
Sir, first, I assure you,
No question.
under oath, as I spoke also during my interview a week or two ago, I have always told the truth. The fact that you would accuse me otherwise, the fact that you would question whether or not that was the sort of look I would engage with in a family member who I have acknowledged hurting, goes more to a discussion about your character and what you stand for and what is going inside you.
It's
and the
to
integrity
your
of man.
credibility, and
why
you lost your credibility.
Lisa Page appeared twice before members of Congress in closed-door testimony. Here's what some congressmen had to say about her.
Credible witness with indeed a very willingness to cooperate with all of the congressional investigations. So we've certainly learned additional things today, but I can tell you that the last thing anybody wants to be is falsely accused. And her willingness to cooperate today, it speaks well for her.
I found Lisa Page to be far more credible than Peter Strzok. I didn't agree with her characterization of every text message and every piece of evidence, but we did not see the smug attitude from Lisa Page that we saw from Peter Strzok.
Where is God when your world is falling apart? Do you feel like He's not listening or doesn't care about your situation or circumstance? In CBN's newest book, Rise Up, Stories of Remarkable Faith and Relentless Courage, you'll read about ordinary people whose circumstances caused them to fall into God's hands and who were given the faith and courage to rise above their trials. Well, joining me to talk more about this is one of the editors of the book, CBN Senior International Correspondent George Thomas. George, thanks for being with us.
Welcome. Thank you, Gary.
What was the inspiration behind this book?
Well, you know, Gary, you and I have the enormous privilege to travel around this beautiful country, around the world. Not just you, but so many of us here at CBN, whether it's in the news department or the 700 Club or features. We travel literally to the four corners of this world. And we're scouring the earth for inspiring stories, stories of ordinary people who face incredible situation, life-changing, life-altering circumstances, yet in the moment of crisis, they have this moment, they say, am I going to completely give up on life? Do I take my life? Do I go into a drug overdose? Do I drink myself to death? Do I shoot myself? But then they have this moment, this epiphany moment. In those epiphany moments, it's God revealing Himself to an individual and saying, listen, hold on.
Who are some of the people you're referring to?
I mean, we go around the world. We've got the story of Majid al-Shafi, this Egyptian young man who was persecuted for his faith. He came from a Muslim background. You know of his story. Yes. In Egypt, originally from Egypt, ended up languishing in an Egyptian cell because of his faith, and through a dramatic set of circumstances was able to escape from the prison. We've got the story of Cody Huff, a gentleman from the streets of Las Vegas who, found himself out on the streets of Las Vegas, eating out of garbage cans, was completely hopeless, found himself going down the road of drugs and alcohol. And in the process, he went to church. And this young lady decided he was dirty, he was smelly, hadn't taken a bath in such a long time. And this lady who had compassion walked up to him, Gary, and said, Cody, you need a hug. And he was so taken aback by this and said, no, I'm dirty, I'm smelly, I haven't eaten, I haven't taken a bath. She says, no, that's okay. I'm going to hug you. And that hug changed his life.
One hug.
One hug. And we have the story of Rivka Barry, who many years ago here in the United States was originally from Pakistan, had an encounter with Jesus Christ. She was from a Muslim background, and she was here in the United States, and she decided to give her life to Jesus Christ. And in the process, she was ostracized. You know, you hear these stories of persecution in other parts of the world, but here in the United States, in Florida, a father and mother decide to disown their beautiful daughter. Why? Because she decided to abandon Islam and to accept Jesus Christ. And she faced tremendous persecution. We have her story. We have a story of a well-known Dallas district attorney who seemed to have the perfect life. She had the perfect life, perfect career, perfect house. Everything was going well until one day she has this dramatic fall, hits her head on the pavement, and she's in a coma for several weeks. She paralyzed. There was no hope. But the church came around. Her friends came around, prayed for her. And today she is well, completely healed.
And was there ever a time when you saw God work in the middle of an overwhelming crisis in your own life?
Yeah, how much time do we have on this show? How much time can you give me, Gary?
Yeah,
you know, it's countless. I cannot count on my fingers.
Well, give us one.
No, I've faced down the barrel of an AK-47 put to my temple. About a year ago, I was in South Sudan, surrounded by SPLA soldiers, one of whom who had just massacred, murdered 2 individuals, innocent farmers. We witnessed it, and they realized that there was a journalist in their midst who had documented it, came and surrounded about 70, 75 SPLA soldiers with another missionary couple out in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, we're a liability. And in the process, I called back to CBN, called our boss, asked for prayer, called my family, asked for prayer, whether it's in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia. I mean, there have been numerous occasions where you know, I would not be sitting at this table, and I'm sure, Gary, you can testify to this.
Certainly.
I would not be sitting at this table if it had not been for the prayers of my colleagues, my family, friends around the world who have interceded at different critical moments, traveling overseas and facing the enemy in different situations and circumstances. I know for a certain that prayer was a key in that, and it helped to provide the way out in a situation.
So what inspired you, George, to be a part of this project?
Well, it's just exciting because, you know, we get to every day we tell these amazing stories from around the world. And we thought, what a better way to put this in a book form so that people can be constantly reminded, okay, sure, you can go to your app, you can watch the stories, incredible testimonies from the 700 Club, from CBN News, from interactive features and so forth. But we thought, you know, what a great way, almost as a coffee table reminder. You know, here's this book, stories of faith in the midst of tremendous trial and tribulation. I hope that when you read this, you will find inspiration. You will see in the pages of these ordinary men and women who exercised courage in the face of death sometimes, who exercised faith. When they had no faith, they took a mustard seed and said, Christ, Lord Jesus, would you take my faith, which seems so insignificant. It does not seem completely sold out, yet I have a little mustard grain of faith. Will you take it and do what you can? And so that's what I hope. I hope that people will see that through the eyes and through the testimony of these incredible men and women, that whatever circumstance you face today in life, that you would give Jesus a chance and you would put him to the test and watch him show up.
And I've had so many people say, well, I have to clean up my act
That's
first.
right. No, you don't.
And you know what I say to them? The only Mr. Clean is Jesus.
Right.
He's the only one who can clean you up enough.
That's right.
Because you can never do enough.
And it's like that famous song that Billy Graham would close his crusades around the world. The song, Just As I Am.
The pundits and tabloids went crazy when President Trump refused to denounce Vladimir Putin to his face in Helsinki. It's almost like loose nukes floating around the world, millions suffering in Syria, Iranian aggression, and other foreign policy matters don't matter. Only Russia. Well, here's the line put out by some tabloids. First, the New York Post. Prez gives bear hug to wicked BFF Vlad. And the Daily News called Trump's response open treason. But I didn't hear much of the same from liberals or the mainstream media when Barack Obama fondly patted the hands of Dmitry Medvedev and assured him he'd have more flexibility after the election. Remember that one?
After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. Okay, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand it.
Nice love pat there, wasn't it? And remember former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's reset button with the Russians?
We want to reset our relationship. And
let's do it together.
So we will do it together, okay?
After that, Secretary Clinton moved classified government emails to a private home computer server and left it vulnerable to Russian hacking. Obama and Clinton's actions sure sound like Russian collusion to me. How about you? And after that reset, Russia seized Crimea and supported pro-Russian rebels in western Ukraine. The left has criticized Trump for cozying up to murderous dictator Putin. But I don't remember hearing much criticism of Obama when he made nice with murderous dictator Raul Castro and then normalized relations with Cuba. Did you? Don't you find it interesting that Robert Mueller announced his indictments against 12 alleged Russian military hackers just 2 days before Trump's meeting with Putin? I say alleged because in this country, we believe someone is guilty until proven innocent. And I'm sure many Americans wonder how Mueller and the FBI know for certain that Russians hacked into those DNC computers when they actually don't have possession of the computers or the servers. Trump treason? No, but President Trump didn't appear strong at that Helsinki press conference. His statement did not reflect his tough policy against Russia, beefing up defenses in Europe, here at home, maintaining strong economic sanctions against the country, those things. Well, the president backtracked and he corrected some of his Helsinki press conference mistakes, but he needs to be careful not to play into the hands of his enemies, those who want to impeach him and destroy his presidency. This includes members of the deep state, high-ranking current and former intelligence officers. The president hesitated to say he trusted their assessment on Russia. But no wonder, folks, many like Peter Strzok are out to stop him. And remember their botched assessment of Saddam Hussein, that he possessed weapons of mass destruction? So why does the left suddenly trust U.S. intelligence assessments? I'm still trying to figure that one out. And why didn't President Obama act when he knew about Russian meddling at least 2 months before the presidential election? Unanswered questions. In the meantime, Mr. President, don't let this mistake prevent you from advancing a foreign policy that continues to take strong action against Russian aggression. Despite the loud voices against you, most Americans want their president to pursue improved relations with our foes in order to avoid war and nuclear annihilation. That doesn't mean we have to be cozy and all friendly and cuddly and feely. Remember, peace through strength. Well, that's it from the Global Lane. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Twitter. And until next time, be blessed.